All right, bourbon lovers, we've all seen the list of best-selling bourbons in America, but let's be honest, just because a bottle sells well doesn't mean it's good.
Today, we're ranking the top 25 selling bourbons in the US. So if you've ever wondered which bestsellers are actually worth your money and which ones are just coasting on hype, you are in the right place. Here's how it's gonna go down. We're using the classic S tier to F tier system, using a scale of 0 to 100.
We averaged our personal scores for each bottle, and where that number landed is where it goes in the tier list.
And if you enjoy our tier list videos, please consider supporting our channel by purchasing one of our whiskey-inspired t-shirts. We've got fun movie and TV show parody tees, shirts with inspiring sayings like "I like bourbon and I cannot lie," and we also have shirts with our official logo to tell the world you're part of this amazing whiskey community. The shirts are soft, stretchy, they fit great, and we think you're gonna love them. Links are in the description below. All right, let's start with number 25, which is Widow Jane Tenure. Widow Jane Tenure is one of those bourbons that always feels a little under the radar, but every time I pour it, I'm reminded why I enjoy it so very much. The texture is rich, you get this deep cherry and cocoa vibe, and the finish lingers just long enough. For me, it's a solid 89, just shy of cracking into the A tier, but definitely a bottle that I enjoy revisiting.
Man, I am with you on this one. So Widow Jane, it brings in that layered complexity I am always looking for in a 10-year bourbon. I gave this one a 90, it's well balanced, has some great earthy notes, and it earns its spot in the A tier for me. So between my 90 and your 89, it averages out to a 90 for Widow Jane Tenure, landing it right in the A tier. At number 24 on our list, we've got Jeffersons Ocean Aged at Sea. Now I'm gonna be honest with you here. I wanted to love Jeffersons Ocean. The whole concept of aging bourbon on a ship, out at sea, sounds amazing. But every time I taste it, I feel like the flavors are lost at sea.
I see what you did there.
Thank you.
And I like it.
It's thin, a little briny, and it lacks the depth I expect from a bottle with that kind of story. For me, it's a 68, which, yep, drops it straight into the D tier territory.
Ryan, I like how this is going so far. We're seeing eye to eye here, and this bottle is no different. The marketing is top notch, but the bourbon itself, to me, it just doesn't deliver. I gave it a 70. There are flashes of sweetness, but it fades fast and doesn't really stand out in a crowded field. So between my 70 and your 68, Jeffersons Ocean averages out to a 69, which parks it firmly in the D tier. Number 23 is Heaven Hill 7-Year Bottled and Bond. Heaven Hill 7-Year Bottled and Bond is a solid no-frills bourbon. It's got that classic Heaven Hill profile, which is caramel and oak and a little nuttiness, and a nice spice kick. I scored it an 85 because I like Widow Jane 10 just a little bit more, but it's a rock solid pour that checks all the boxes.
For me, it's a good pour, but it never really hits that wow factor. I gave it an 80 because while it's well made, it never quite elevates beyond solid. It's reliable, but in a field of heavy hitters, it kind of feels like a background player. So with your 85 and my 80, Heaven Hill 7-Year Bottled and Bond averages out to an 83, placing it in the B tier. Up next at number 22, we've got Russell's Reserve 10-Year. Now this is one of those bottles that consistently over-delivers. For a 10-year bourbon at this price point, the depth of flavor is ridiculous. Rich vanilla, baking spices, and a little touch of leather in there too. This one is a bourbon lover's bourbon. I gave it a 92. It's easily A tier for me and a bottle I'll always keep on my shelf.
Ryan, I couldn't agree more. Russell's 10 is so dependable. Like my salsa dancing skills, it's not flashy, but it's got all the right moves. I also scored it a 92, making it the first bottle in which we are completely in sync. So between our 92s, Russell's Reserve 10-Year gets locked in as a solid A tier bourbon. Number 21 is Old Grandad 114. Old Grandad 114 is what I call a no-nonsense bourbon. It's bold, it's spicy, and it hits you with that high rye kick right out of the gate. This is a bottle for people who like their bourbon with a bit of punch. I gave it an 84. It's one of the best bang for your buck bottles out there if you like high proof.
Old Grandad 114 does not mess around. It's a little rough around the edges, but in a good way. I gave it an 85. You get that rye spice, some burnt caramel, a little peanut note that's like classic Beam, and a finish that keeps you on your toes.
Ooh.
So with your 84 and my 85, that averages out to an 85 for Old Grandad 114, landing it right in the B tier. All right, up next at number 20, we've got Eagle Rare 10. Now, Eagle Rare is a bourbon that lives up to its name. It's just rare enough to feel special, but when you do find it, it delivers every single time. You get that beautiful balance of sweet vanilla, dark fruit, and just a little bit of oak. For me, It's a rock solid 96, S tier all day long.
Ryan, once again, I couldn't agree more. If you've seen our favorite bottles in our shelf video, you'll know that I have this one in my top 5 whiskeys that I currently own. I use this quintessential bourbon to introduce non-bourbon drinkers to the world of bourbon, and for that, I will give this sexy little bottle a 96 as well. So with both of us in sync for the second time today, Eagle Rare scores a 96, putting it comfortably in the S tier, which I think it absolutely deserves.
100%.
Number 19 on our list is Wild Turkey Rare Breed. Wild Turkey Rare Breed is a powerhouse. It's barrel proof, but it doesn't come across as hot. Instead, it's rich, bold, and somehow still smooth for the proof. You get layers of caramel, spice, and a little bit of that classic turkey funk. I gave it a 92, and it's an easy A tier bourbon in my book. One of the best values in barrel proof whiskey.
Rare Breed is a beast in the best possible way. It's unapologetically bold, but it's balanced too. I gave it a 94 because for a barrel proof bottle, it delivers everything I want. Depth, complexity, and like you said, that signature Wild Turkey character. Between your 92 and my 94, Wild Turkey Rare Breed averages out to a 93, which lands it solidly in the A tier.
We got some in the B, we got some in the A, we got one in the D.
Some in the I.
Some in the
Up next at number 18, we've got Maker's Mark 46. Maker's 46 was a great step up for the brand when it came out. It brings more depth than the standard Makers, with those French oak staves adding extra vanilla and baking spice. But for me, it still falls a little flat compared to other wheated bourbons out there. I gave it an 81. It's a good pour, but firmly B tier in my book.
I'm right there with you. Maker's 46 has its fans, and I appreciate what they're going for with the extra oak influence. Maybe this is more of a palate thing than a critique, but I'm not a huge fan of the signature Maker's Mark flavor. Plus, I wish I had a little bit more punch. I gave it an 80. So between your 81 and my 80, that averages out to an 81 for Maker's Mark 46, keeping it comfortably in the B tier. Number 17 is Larseny Small Batch. Larseny Small Batch is one of those bourbons that I want to love more than I actually do. It's a wheated bourbon, so expect a smooth, mellow profile, and it delivers on that. But sometimes it feels like I'm missing a little uniqueness. I gave it an 84. I recognize it's a good bottle, solid B tier for me, but it doesn't quite reach the top of the pack.
I actually like this one a little bit more than you did. I think Larseny brings a nice balance of sweetness and spice, with a soft caramel note that makes it super approachable. I gave it an 87. It's not blowing anyone away, but it's a reliable B tier pour. So between your 84 and my 87, that averages out to an 86 for Larseny Small Batch, right in the B tier. Coming in at number 16, we've got 1792 Small Batch. 1792 Small Batch is kind of a sleeper pick in the bourbon world. It's got a nice spice kick from the high rye mash bill, balanced out with some caramel and dark fruit notes. It's not overly complex, but for a casual pour, it holds its own. I gave it an 83, a solid B tier bourbon that I'm never mad to see on the shelf.
1792 Small Batch doesn't get a lot of hype, but it's a dependable pour with a balance of sweet and spice. I scored it an 84. So between your 83 and my 84, it averages out to an 84 for 1792 Small Batch, comfortably sitting in the B tier. The number 15th best-selling bourbon in the US is Old Forester 100. Old Forester 100 is still one of my go-to daily sippers. It's got that rich caramel and oak backbone, a touch of that Brown-Forman banana note, and a spice kick that keeps it interesting.
I like how you hit a different octave there.
Call me Mariah Carey.
Wow.
I gave it an 86. It's not quite knocking on A tier's door, but it's a high B tier bourbon that over-delivers for its price point.
So I'm actually a little bit lower on this one, but I still think Old Forester 100 is a solid pour. For me, that banana note is a bit of a hit or miss thing depending on the day. I gave it an 82. It's good, but not one I find myself reaching for as often as you do.
We don't all have good taste.
Between your 86 and my 82, Old Forester 100 averages out to an 84, hanging in the B tier. Coming in at number 14, we've got Michter's US 1 Bourbon. Now, Michter's is one of those bourbons that always feels a little fancy, even though it's not trying too hard. It's smooth with nice caramel and vanilla layers and a subtle spice that keeps it interesting. I gave it an 84. It's a solid B tier bourbon that always feels like a treat without breaking into elite territory.
Michter's always brings a polished, well-balanced profile. It doesn't swing for the fences, but it's a dependable pour with a touch of elegance. I gave this one an 86. Between your 84 and my 86, Michter's US 1 Bourbon averages out to an 85. Another one landing in the middle of the B tier.
That B tier is stacking up, huh?
That B tier is just getting pounded.
And it just goes to show that some of the best-selling bourbons are actually worth getting, and they're solid pours overall.
Yeah.
All right, up next at number 13, we've got Elijah Craig Small Batch. Elijah Craig Small Batch is another workhorse bourbon. You get classic notes of caramel, oak, a little baking spice, and it's rich, balanced, and it just delivers. For me, this bottle punches way above its price point, and guess what? I gave it an 86, another B tier.
There it is again.
Yep, but this one sometimes knocks on the door of A tier, depending on the day.
I guess today's not a good day.
Immediately called me out for that one.
Elijah Craig is yet another bourbon on this list that is dependable, consistent, and pretty damn well balanced. It's an easy sipper for many, but it's not overly complex, and slightly forgettable in a sea of yum-yums on this list. So, I will give it an 83. So between your 86 and my 83, we're averaging out to an 85 for Elijah Craig Small Batch, which keeps it, again, in the B tier.
Jeez.
I know what you were trying to do there. Every once in a while, you want to sneak this one into the A, but today it's staying put where it belongs, B tier.
Is there a difference between the A and the B?
I guess depends on the day. Number 12 best-selling bourbon in the US is Knob Creek 9 Year. Knob Creek 9 is just a powerhouse of flavor. Big, bold oak, rich caramel, and a nice hint of nuttiness. It's everything I want in a classic bourbon profile. I gave it a 91. It's a rock solid A tier bottle and one of my favorite daily sippers when I want something with a little heft.
Oh, we broke the B tier. I could not have said that any better. I could have, maybe, but I didn't.
You probably can.
I won't. Knob Creek 9 just brings that extra layer of depth without trying to be fancy. I scored it a 92 because it's consistent, it's full flavored, and honestly, it's one of the best value A tier bourbons out there. So between your 91 and my 92, Knob Creek 9 Year locks in at a 92, a welcomed addition to the uncrowded A tier. Up next at number 11, we've got good old Wild Turkey 101. This one is the definition of a classic. It's bold, it's spicy, and it always over-delivers for the price. That high rye mash bill brings a nice punch, but it's still balanced with some rich caramel and vanilla notes in there too. I gave it an 88, top end of the B tier, and honestly, if you're building a bourbon bar, this should be one of the first bottles you grab.
Wild Turkey 101 is just a dependable pour. It's not fancy, and it doesn't try to be trendy, but it's got a backbone of flavor that makes it stand out in its price point. That rye spice, the caramel, and even a little bit of that charred oak, it's all there. I scored it an 85. It's never gonna blow your mind, but it'll never let you down either. Kind of like me in bed. Between your 88 and my 85, Wild Turkey 101 averages out to an 87, landing it solidly in the B tier. It's one of the best values out there, even if it doesn't crack our top tier. And now we're getting into our top 10 best-selling bourbons in the US. And number 10 on our list is Angel's Envy. Angel's Envy is one of those bourbons that feels like it was made for people who want a little something different. The port cask finish adds this layer of sweetness, dark fruit, maple syrup, and even a little chocolate note. And all that makes it stand out from your standard bourbons. I gave it a 94 because it strikes that perfect balance between being approachable and still having enough depth to keep whiskey nerds like me interested.
Yeah, Angel's Envy is definitely a crowd pleaser. That port finish gives it a softer, almost dessert-like profile, but you still get that nice hit of oak and spice to remind you it's a bourbon. For me, it's a 92. It's the kind of bottle I'll recommend to anyone looking to branch out from traditional bourbon flavors. It's unique, but it's still got structure. So with your 94 and my 92, Angel's Envy averages out to 93, putting it firmly in the A tier. Number 9, we got good old Buffalo Trace. Buffalo Trace is one of those bottles that somehow manages to please almost everybody. It's approachable for beginners, but still complex enough for seasoned bourbon drinkers to appreciate. You get those classic caramel and vanilla notes up front, a little bit of fruitiness, and just enough oak to round it out. I'm gonna give this one a 92. It's the definition of a reliable A-tier bourbon.
Buffalo Trace is just dialed in. It's consistent, well balanced, and honestly, it's the benchmark I measure a lot of bourbons against. It's not flashy, but that's what makes it so good. It's an everyday pour that never disappoints. And guess what, Ryan? This quintessential bourbon got a score of 92 from me. So once again, we are in sync. With both of us, with a 92, Buffalo Trace is locked into the A tier, and that's where it belongs because it's a staple bottle that's earned its reputation. Number 8 on our list is Evan Williams Black Label. Evan Williams Black is the blue-collar hero of bourbon. It's dirt cheap, but it doesn't taste like it. You get a good hit of caramel, a little charred oak, and a surprisingly smooth finish for a budget bottle. I gave it a 72. It's not winning any awards for complexity, but for what it is, it holds its own. Solid C tier pour in my book.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's not good?
Okay.
Uh-oh. We just were in sync.
Oh.
Is the train gonna disband? What's happening here?
Yeah, I think it's about to rip apart.
Oh, rip apart?
Yeah. In my book, Evan Williams Black Label isn't just a good for the price bottle, it's a genuinely enjoyable pour. Sure, it's not gonna compete with top shelf stuff, but for me, it's more than just a budget sipper. I scored it an 84 because for me, it punches way above its price tag with a nice balance of sweet and smoky. You called it a blue collar hero. I think it deserves a little more credit than that.
How do you guys feel about Evan Williams Black Label? Where do you think it belongs?
Between your 72 and my 84, Evan Williams Black Label averages out to a 78, which lands it in the C tier. Up next, number 7, we've got Blantons. Blantons is the bourbon that probably got half of us into the hobby. It's iconic, from the horse topper to the round bottle. And luckily, it's not just about looks. Flavor-wise, you get a nice balance of caramel, citrus, and a little bit of spice, and a soft, smooth finish. I gave this one an 89. It's a high B tier for me. It's great, but the hype sometimes overshadows what it actually is.
Bllandens is definitely the bourbon world's celebrity bottle, but when you strip away the hype and just taste it, it still really is a good pour.
It is.
I think it nails the balance of approachability and flavor complexity, but with time, I think Blanton's has lost its spot as the gold standard of bourbon. To me, it's still enjoyable enough for me to score it at a 90, just nudging it into the A tier. With your 89 and my 90, Blanton's averages out to a 90, which earns it a spot just barely in the A tier. Number 6 is Four Roses Small Batch. Four Roses Small Batch is a bottle that I've always respected for its balance and consistency, but it's another one that doesn't really hit the happy spots on my palate.
Oh, your palate has happy spots.
Oh, it has some good happy spots, let me tell you. You get a mix of sweet fruit, light spice, and a floral note that gives a softer, elegant profile. But it's definitely not in my top 10 from this tier list. I am gonna give it an 80.
I think you underrated this one a little bit, in my book.
I don't believe you, but okay.
Four Roses Small Batch brings a lot of depth for the price. You got layers of stone fruit, honey, a little cinnamon. It's delicate, but there's complexity if you give it time. I scored it an 87. It might not smack you in the face with flavor, but it's sneaky good. With your 80 and my 87, Four Roses Small Batch averages out to an 84, which places it firmly in the B tier. It's quietly dependable, even if we're a bit split on how much love it deserves.
I only have enough love to give, and I've given it to my Eagle Rare.
Now we are cracking in to the top 5 best-selling bourbons in the US. At number 5, Basil Hayden. Basil Hayden is one of those bottles that looks premium, but when you pour it, it sucks. At 80 proof, it feels watered down and the flavor profile is thin. You get a little caramel and light spice, but that fades pretty fast. I gave this one a 68, and honestly, it's a bottle I only recommend to people who are just starting out and want the softest introduction possible.
Yeah, Basil Haydens has always felt like the bourbon that's afraid to be a bourbon. It is easy going to a fault. You get a faint hint of sweetness and a little oak, but it lacks the depth or punch to keep me interested. It's approachable, but for seasoned bourbon drinkers, it's just not enough. I am gonna give it a 69. And if you watched our recent Rye Tier List video, you would know that this is the second Basil Hayden product in a row to get a 69 from me.
Consistent.
I am very consistent with my 69s. Between your 68 and my 69, Basil Hayden's averages out to a 69, landing it squarely in the D tier. Number 4 is Jim Beam White Label. Jim Beam White Label is, what can you say? It's a mixer. You get a little caramel, you get some nutty notes, and a flash of oak, but it's thin and it doesn't really bring a lot to the table when you're sipping it neat. I gave it a 68. It's not meant to be a sipper, but for cocktails, it's a solid utility player.
Yeah, Jim Beam White Label has always been a mixer, not a sipper. I gave it a 69 because while it's serviceable, it lacks depth and comes off thin when you're drinking it neat. It's not offensive, but it's never going to impress either. That said, I respect it for what it is, a bourbon that's accessible and dependable for cocktails. With your 68 and my 69, Jim Beam White Label averages out to 69, placing it in the D tier. So our first two in the top 5 in the D tier.
Look at that, and back-to-back 69s.
Yeah.
Hey.
What a day. Number 3 on our list, we've got Woodford Reserve. Woodford is one of those bourbons that feels like it belongs everywhere. Your home bar, a fancy steakhouse, even at a beginner's tasting. It's rich with caramel, toasted oak, a little bit of dark chocolate, and that signature Woodford nuttiness. I gave this one an 83. It's a solid B-tier bourbon that's dependable, even if it doesn't quite hit those top-tier wow moments.
Yeah, Woodford Reserve is like a jack-of-all-trades bourbon. It's smooth, it's got just enough complexity to keep you interested, and it's one of those bottles you can confidently recommend to almost anyone. I think it's a reliable B-tier bottle, and I scored it an 82. Not flashy, but it's got a polished classic feel that always delivers a good pour. Between your 83 and my 82, Woodford Reserve averages out to an 83, keeping it comfortably in the B tier.
Another one.
Another one in the B. Just stuffing them in there.
Jeez.
And now our runner-up, best-selling bourbon in the US. Number 2 on our list is Bulleit Bourbon. Bulleit Bourbon is known for the high rye mash bill, which gives it a nice spicy kick right out of the gate. You get some of that caramel and vanilla, but it leans more on the spice and citrus side. I gave it a 77. It's a C-tier bourbon for me. It's not bad, but it tends to come across as a little sharp and one-dimensional when sipped neat. Great in cocktails though.
Excellent in cocktails.
Excellent in cocktails. I stand corrected.
Yeah, Bulleit's always been a cocktail bourbon in my book. That rye spice is great for mixing, but when you're drinking it straight, it can be a little harsher on the edges. I also gave it a 77. Yeah. It's solid for what it is, but if I'm looking for a sipping bourbon, I'm gonna reach for something else. With both of us back in sync at 77, Bulleit Bourbon is destined for the C tier. Reliable in a cocktail, but not a bottle we're sipping neat too often.
All right, Ryan, let the good folks know what is our number 1 best-selling bourbon in the US.
The number 1 best-selling bourbon in the US is Maker's Mark. Maker's Mark is probably one of the most recognizable bourbons in the world. The red wax top is iconic. Flavor-wise, it's soft and sweet with caramel, vanilla, and a little wheat-driven smoothness. I gave it a 79. It's an easy sipper, but it plays it pretty safe. For me, it's at the higher end of the C tier, approachable but lacking the depth to climb higher.
Maker's is definitely a gateway bourbon for a lot of people. It's super approachable and has that sweet and mellow profile. But I agree with you, it just doesn't have that extra layer of complexity. And as I said before, Maker's has this flavor profile that doesn't quite hit my happy spots. If you want to try something really good from Maker's, I would say Keeper's Release or Heart Release is the way to go. But for this one, I will give it a 78. It's reliable, but there are better bourbons out there for the same price point. With your 79 and my 78, Maker's Mark averages out to a 79, which puts it at the very top of the C tier. A classic for sure, but not quite enough to make the jump into the next tier. We had a pretty healthy A tier lineup and our B tier was absolutely packed. But now we want to hear from you. Which of these bottles did we get completely right, and which ones are you ready to fight us over? Also, if you've got a tier list idea that you want us to tackle next, let us know in the comments. We're always up for a good ranking battle.
And if you enjoyed this tier list, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, check out our other tier list where we rank Buffalo Trace products, Irish whiskeys, scotches, rye whiskeys, and a whole lot more. Till next time, cheers.